Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Roerig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of thetotalscreen.com. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we have two main topics to discuss in our full spoiler segment. A bunch of news stories, one really big news story that we're going to start things off with. Some stuff coming up on the horizon, and that's about it.
Huge.
Big news stories we're going to get started with, so let's start right away with our news segment On Beat. On Beat is, of course, as I said, our news segment, and we're going to kick things off with the biggest news story of the week. Biggest news story of the year so far, I'd even mention.
Yeah, most likely.
It's only January.
Most likely going to be the biggest news story of the year.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think because, yeah, it's still January, but.
Basically what happened is Microsoft is buying Activision Blizzard for $70 billion. This is still, it's not completely gone through yet. Whenever something this big happens, there's all sorts of legal things that
it's
stuff has to go
currently
through.
Scheduled to complete sometime between June and July of 2023.
Yeah, unless it gets like halted by the government or something.
Yeah, it's got past regulators and all the legal hurdles.
Mm-hmm. So this is kind of like, there's two kind of real sides to the story, I think. One is that like, wow, this is a big deal. This is the biggest acquisition in gaming history.
Yes.
It's huge. Activision Blizzard is a huge publisher, a huge third-party publisher. So in a sense, it's exciting just because it's something big,
Right.
But then the other side of the story is, wow, this is really skating the edge of antitrust.
It's, I don't think by itself, but if you
look at Microsoft's recent buying habits.
Yeah, if you look at their buying habits, they're headed in that direction. I don't know if this seals the deal or not, but
yeah, they're teetering on the edge, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're circling right there, This is there's some interesting things to say here. One is that if you think about the first person shooter genre, which isn't as big now as it used to be, but is still one of the biggest genres in gaming.
Still big. Especially
you have Call of Duty dominance of that now. If this goes through, it looks like it will.
If you looked at because and you didn't actually put this in the notes, but that's fine because the December NPD dropped today, and Call of Duty Vanguard was the number one best-selling game, and also Call of Duty Vanguard was the best-selling game of the entire year for 2021.
Yeah, it's a big deal, but Call of Duty is the big one they're getting from Activision Blizzard. They have a few other ones too, but you have to also, like we said, take Microsoft's past buying habits into play. They also own id Software, right? Bethesda, which owns id Software, which in turn gives them Doom, Wolfenstein, and a whole slew of other little long forgotten first person shooters that they could revive at any moment.
Yeah, Quake. Yeah, they pretty much have cornered the FPS market. People now, I'm seeing calls for Sony to kind of revive Killzone or start a new FPS franchise now. This is a big deal.
I think the only huge player in the first person shooter field, besides free to play first person shooters, which is a whole other thing in my opinion, but the only other huge player left is Battlefield, and that's what, EA, right?
Yeah, that's EA.
So if Microsoft starts eyeing up EA,
yeah, that would be bad.
I think that would 100% be antitrust if they grabbed Activision, EA, and Bethesda,
Right. So looking into this, apparently what happened is the recent scandals surrounding Activision Blizzard essentially put them into a position to be acquired. Microsoft saw an opportunity and they went for it.
Reports are that Bobby Kotick did not want to go through with the deal, but his board was like, no, fuck you. You're a big part of why we're in this position.
The board overruled. The reports I read is, the board overruled him. Bobby Kotick put out feelers, like from reports I've seen, he contacted Facebook and EA and said, hey, do you want to buy us out? And they were like, no, not really. And so Microsoft was the only party that was interested.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, exactly. This is bad news, obviously, for, industry consolidation. I think mergers and acquisitions consolidation is a bad thing for the industry. I don't think it's good.
Like big scale ones. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, big scale ones, definitely. Stuff like this. And what I hate is you see like all these people, several like games journalists and stuff sitting here going, guess what the market cap of Nintendo is? Like almost like wishing, like who could Microsoft buy next? I mean, we shouldn't.
I got to cut it real quick because there's a confusion that they're making that shows they know nothing about the stock market. And that is that when a company is acquired, it goes for way above the stock market evaluation of the price point of the company. Right. So like, for instance, I have a stock in a pharmaceutical company that is right now, like if it gets bought out, it'll be bought out for like more than double what the stock is worth. So it's like, that's not, that kind of like the valuation, those kind of ideas of what the value of what a company is, that does not equate to what they could be sold for.
Right. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is I see this like Jeff Cayley was like, in case you're wondering, here's the stock value of like all these companies, and I'm just like, we shouldn't be cheerleading this stuff, we really shouldn't be like egging Microsoft on, like come on, to me, that's gross.
Yeah.
But the other side to this though is I do believe that this will actually be more beneficial for Activision because that company was being horribly run. Microsoft bought them. So like all the problems is now Microsoft's problem. And if they don't clean that up, that's on Microsoft.
Yeah.
Phil Spencer can't go around doing his whole PR thing of being a good guy and saying all the right things if Microsoft leaves all the abusers in place and they don't fix that situation.
Yeah, that's like you said, it's the one kind of silver lining of this whole situation is that Activision Blizzard, they needed to be bought. I really wish it hadn't been Microsoft, but they needed to be bought,
Yeah, terrible management. Even aside from like all the abuse of their employees, just like the fact that they're putting all their studios on Call of Duty. Blizzard is in shambles. They're struggling to put out Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2. Meanwhile, development has stopped on Overwatch 1. World of Warcraft is losing subscribers, especially to Final Fantasy 14. It was a company that was like slowly circling the drain. Yeah. Even if like Call of Duty is the best selling game, it doesn't matter because that's their only game. Yeah. So it was like somebody had to come, and hopefully Microsoft comes in. Call of Duty is
a big game, but they're a bloated company.
Yeah. So hopefully Microsoft can like reassess that. Microsoft doesn't need to put out a Call of Duty every year. That's not the only thing that Microsoft as a company depends on. So they can probably afford to scale that back and let some of these other teams go back to making their own things and maybe diversify the software lineup that comes out of that. There's a lot of benefits as far as the operation of Activision goes to being under Microsoft that I think.
Yeah, it's just to wish it wasn't through a platform holder.
Right.
If it had been through an independent company rather than a platform holder, that would have been less of a monopolistic threat. The one last thing to kind of go over is that they said that they're going to honor existing contracts and deals, which means that there's games that are still supposed to come to everything from PlayStation to Stadia, are still scheduled to come out. That's like individual games, though. That doesn't mean franchises will remain specific to that once those individual games come. So we'll see. Kind of Bethesda, that when they bought them, remember the whole thing was kind of like, we're going to keep most of this stuff pretty open. And now it's starting to look like some of the new stuff that's popping up is going to be exclusive.
Right.
So we'll have to see how long that lasts. But for right now, for at least like the next year, probably you're going to be getting the Activision Blizzard games coming out this year are going to be hitting pretty much everything, even under ownership by Microsoft. So that's good. As a Switch fan, this news means probably nothing to me.
No.
No change.
I see some comments like Sony and Nintendo are crapping themselves. I'm like, Nintendo's not crapping themselves. Like, oh no, Switch isn't getting Call of Duty games anymore.
I think the only game I could think of from them on the Switch is like Overwatch is on the Switch, right? That's it.
Overwatch, the Crash Bandicoot, Insane Trilogy, I think Spyro.
Okay.
Reignited Trilogy, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 HD.
So basically compilations, remakes, and I believe Overwatch.
Crash Force. So yes, Crash Bandicoot, Overwatch, and Tony Hawk.
Not a big deal.
Yeah, not a huge loss. I suspect these games were not the reason Switch is about to surpass the Wii. That's just a hunch.
Yeah, the Crash trilogy was pushing it over the line.
Nintendo doesn't need Activision, like never did. Yeah. So
let's move on to our next news story, which is that the Lord of the Rings Amazon original series that isn't actually Lord of the Rings, but another series that takes place in that universe finally got its name, and that is The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, is now the official name of the Amazon Prime Lord of the Rings series.
That sounds like if they made like a Lord of the Rings like Saturday morning cartoon in the 80s.
The Rings of Power.
That's exactly like how I heard it in my mind. You would see like Frodo and the hobbits come in, and then like Gandalf, like it pans down, Gandalf standing in the center, and Gandalf puts his like staff down and lightning beam shoots out into the sky, and that forms the logo, The Rings of Power. Like that's the opening.
And then you hear like some weird distorted lion roar sound or something.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Did you see the little like title trailer they released?
Yeah, I watched it. I mean, it's not really.
Well, the cool thing is that they didn't do it with CG. They just literally did like a casting. So that's like all like with metal pouring through it. So that's kind of like a cool little thing.
Then. Oh, that's neat then.
Yeah, but I mean, it really it doesn't give you.
It was just
new.
Like somebody quoting, the passage from the book. It's like okay.
Yeah, it doesn't give you anything actually new. Yeah, it's just the title and then a cool little video of the title, and that's it. So that's that. Our next story is that the Santa Claus is going to have a limited series continuation with Tim Allen on Disney Plus. I read the kind of synopsis, and it's basically like the first Santa Claus movie was about him being recruited as a replacement for Santa Claus, and this one is about him.
Santa Claus freaking died.
Yeah, or what? Did he die? I thought he was picking him as his replacement.
No, he like slipped. Tim Allen surprises him, and then he slips. He falls off the roof, and then he freaking dies. Then Tim Allen finds like the piece of paper in his pocket or something. That's apparently like the contract, and then he starts literally turning into Santa Claus.
Okay, I'm glad I consulted with our Santa Claus expert.
Yes, I'm the expert on the Santa Claus movie.
What's supposed to happen here is that where he was taking over for Santa Claus in the first movie, this is about him looking into retirement and looking for his replacement.
Well, somebody's got to kill him per the rules of the first movie. So
is it killer because it said that he's looking to retire?
No, I doubt.
There can be
that's
only one.
I doubt that's a hard rule, but like, I'm just making a joke because that's how it literally happened in the first movie. So I was like,
the Santa Claus lander. There can be only one.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Highlander.
You cut off Santa's head and then
you
get struck by a bunch of festive lightning. And then we have another story about another old nostalgia property play from Disney Plus, and that is that Real Steel, which was a movie with Hugh Jackman, is in the early stages of development to have a series based on it. It's just the director is going to be a producer on it. We don't know anything really about it, though. Is it a continuation? Are they going to try to get Hugh Jackman to return for it? Is it unrelated? Is it a completely new adaptation? But anyways, if you're a fan of the Real Steel movie with Hugh Jackman, it is in the early stages of development at Disney Plus.
Yeah, I'd never even watched that movie, so I don't know. I don't have an opinion on this.
Same here. We only brought it up because it was linked to the Santa Claus thing because they're both Disney Plus. They both same kind of idea of like reigniting a franchise, Speaking of reigniting a franchise, the Arrowverse. So apparently David Ramsey, who played Diggle in Arrow, is going to be reprising his role in a new Arrowverse series called Justice U, which is in development at the CW. I couldn't really find any details details, but with the title Justice U, I can only imagine it's about training future superheroes.
Yeah, it is, actually. You didn't read the synopsis?
Oh, in the synopsis I read, it didn't say anything about it.
So,
I was looking for it, and it didn't have anything about the plot details.
Yeah, so what I read is this is about Diggle training future superheroes at a university. They're going to a normal university. It's not like a superhero university. They're incognito at a normal university, and then he trains them secretly in the basement or something.
This kind of annoys me because for one, that's basically the same plot as the new Boys series that's coming out.
Right, yeah.
But then there's a book series I love that I would love to see get an adaptation, which on the base synopsis is almost exactly like that, but it's so much better than Arrowverse.
I don't know. I like Diggle. I like that character a lot, obviously.
But fuck the Arrowverse.
Yeah, but these shows are so ridiculous. And I don't want to watch a CW show with a bunch of pretty teenagers or whatever. I don't care at this point. But, I do like Diggle. So, it's cool that David Ramsey's getting his own show. I'm going to say that. It's cool that he is, because he deserves it, because he kicked ass, but it doesn't sound at all interesting to me.
Yeah. Our next story is another franchise coming back. This one is one you are excited about, and that is Justified being revived.
Oh, hell yes.
It's a new series called Justified City Primeval. It's coming to FX with Timothy Olyphant reprising his role as Raylan Gibbons. This one's going to be set in Florida and then moving to Detroit.
Well, it starts in Florida, but it sounds like the bulk of the action happens in Detroit.
That's the city in the city Primeval.
Which is kind of funny. It's kind of funny because that's how Justified went, right? Because the first episode, the premiere, Raylan was in Miami, and then events transfolded where he had to go back to Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Well, this, the original series is based on book content. So this is there is a book story where this happens, where he's older and he goes to Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. And it sounds interesting from the plot synopsis. It doesn't sound like they're just rehashing Justified.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not going back to the old setting.
Yeah.
And they're not, it doesn't sound like they're bringing back Boyd Crowder or anything like that. It sounds like they're completely disconnecting it from all of those aspects of the original series.
Yeah, which is good to me. I know some people are disappointed, but
it needs a fresh start. I already had a bunch of seasons.
Yeah, we had a bunch of seasons of that. Let's try something new with I'm ready to do something, explore something new with this character, and I have total faith in the crew, the people behind the show, that it's going to be just as wonderful as Justified was. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Our next story is that Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself, is boarding the Roku original biopic, Weird, the Al Yankovic Story. In the titular role, he will be playing Weird Al Yankovic.
That was surprising. I would never thought, A, there would be a Weird Al Yankovic biopic, or B, that Daniel Radcliffe would ever play Weird Al Yankovic.
There's a huge height difference. Daniel Radcliffe is so short that he's being fan casted as Wolverine right now in the MCU.
I mean, it's going to be, it's going to be CGI. They can do anything.
Or they'll just go with him being short as a funny part of the movie. Right. Because Weird Al Yankovic is tall. He's 6'4".
Oh, yeah, he's a tall dude,
and Daniel Radcliffe, I think, is 5'6" or something. He's pretty short,
Daniel Radcliffe is still the same size he was when he played Harry Potter.
Yeah, in the first movie. No, but it's just kind of interesting. But if you're gonna do a biopic about Weird Al Yankovic, doing it kind of playing loose with the rules kind of sounds like the better way to do it in general. So that's cool. Here's the synopsis that Roku put out. This is the first Roku original movie. Here's that synopsis that Roku put out. The biopic holds nothing back, exploring every facet of Yankovic's life, from his meteoric rise to fame with early hits like Eat It and Like a Surgeon, to his torrid celebrity love affairs and famously depraved lifestyle. Weird, the Al Yankovic Story, takes audiences on a truly unbelievable journey through Yankovic's life and career, from gifted child prodigy to the greatest musical legend of all time. Yeah, it sounds
it's
like
gonna be great.
They're playing it light, and that sounds good.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to that as well. Daniel Radcliffe has great comedic chops.
He's reinvented himself as a comedic actor, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And then lastly, we're going to discuss a few trailers and clips that have been released in this past week. Just a bunch kind of happened to come out, and so we're going to go over those. We're going to kick things off with the Cuphead show, which, it looks like Cuphead.
It does. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks very very creative. It looks like anything can happen. There were a lot of familiar faces. If you played the game, there's like a lot of familiar faces. Like there was like the dragon, who's like the boss at one of the stages, and there a lot of there was
that,
like
devil character,
yeah, the devil character was like the main villain, and then like there's the dice man, the guy with the dice for the head. So yeah, it looks like a lot of fun.
It looks like they mostly retain the look. Like there's a few parts where it looks kind of more modern, like a few parts I saw in the animation, but for the most part, it looks like it's retaining that kind of classic Disney animated style, which is cool.
Yeah.
There's another series coming out that also, at least in this clip, it's an anthology series, so we don't know if it's going to be every episode or just this one episode, but also seems to be kind of going with that old kind of classic animation style, and that is The Boys Diabolical. They released a clip, not a trailer, but just a clip from a scene that involved a baby. I don't know if it's the same baby or if it's supposed to be a similar baby to the one from
Laser Eye Baby.
Yeah, the Laser Eye Baby from it's season 2, right? Towards the beginning of season 2.
I believe so. I don't know. It's been a while.
I'm not sure, but yeah. So it's a baby with laser eyes, and yeah, it looks like a fun little Disney style romp, and then the baby's eyes decapitate a bunch of police officers, and
yeah, it's also very gory. By the way, they don't hold back on the gore.
And then it ends with the dog licking his testicle. So it's reminding you. It shows this kind of classical animation style, and it reminds you. But this is still The Boys. You're still watching The Boys here, not a fun little Disney romp. I think that looks pretty cool. It's an anthology series, so we don't really know if this is going to be like the style for the whole series or if this is just like one of the episodes. It could be like the Animatrix, where it's like that, and then another one looks like anime, and another one looks like CG. We don't know really what it's going to pan out to be. The next trailer we got was Our Flag Means Death. This is the new series from Taika Waititi.
This looks like this is going to do for pirates what we did in Shadows did for vampires.
Yeah, it looks great. Yeah, it looks really funny. I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy who seems to be the lead in this, I thought it was going to be Taika as Blackbeard, but it's not him. It's this other guy who was in the What We Do in the Shadows movie.
Oh yeah,
Jermaine Clement? No. It's he was like the leader of the werewolves in the What We Do in the Shadow movie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he's been in a bunch of other stuff. He's like a New Zealand actor. I've seen him in some other stuff. He was also in that show. What was that Lost parody TV show? Wrecked, I think it was called.
Yeah, Wrecked. Yeah,
he was in that as well. He's been in some other stuff. He's really funny. The actor in general is. So this is like kind of a perfect role for him, and it's cool to see him with Taika Waititi and again. So it looks really funny. That's Our Flag Means Death.
Yeah, it looks great.
And then lastly, from the trailers and clips segment, Moon Knight. This is we bookended the big news stories. We have Microsoft buying Blizzard, Activision Blizzard at the beginning, and the Moon Knight trailer at the end. We thought we'd end on the high note.
Moon Knight trailer looks great. It looks really different for a Marvel Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
Just different from what Marvel did,
Much more filmic in its style and look. It looks more like a movie than a lot of the other ones I've looked so far.
Yes.
It just the characterizations and the camera angles and stuff. It's less straightforward and more kind of, I guess filmic is the best way I can put it. Yeah, it looks really cool. And Oscar Isaacs is a great actor.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see him taking on a role that's I don't know too much about the role just from what I've heard since the series was announced, but he's suffering from dissociative identity disorder, I believe.
It seems that way, right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard about the character from the comics and stuff, apparently. And so multiple personalities.
Actually, the entire Moon Knight series is about Moon Knight trying to get his money from Dracula.
Yeah. Looks really cool. It's got that kind of a story, but then there's also something having to do with Egyptian mythology mixed in there as well. And then I've also heard the character frequently compared to Batman. It's Marvel's Batman.
Yeah, it's sort of Marvel's Batman. Yeah. I think that's fair comparison.
Yeah, he's a brutal character,
Well, you saw him brutally beating on a monster at the end of the trailer, right?
I saw that pointed out. I don't know if it's true, but I saw that pointed out as being Werewolf by Night. That he was.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Apparently Moon Knight started in a Werewolf by Night comic, and also there's heavily been rumored that we're getting a Werewolf by Night Halloween special.
No, we are. It's pretty much confirmed. They've announced casting for that and everything.
I thought that was just rumor still.
No, they've literally announced casting, or
because I know that
people have been casted. I don't know. Anyway, I think it's confirmed at this point. But I mean, I don't know. That's probably going to end up being like some random monster. It's probably not going to be that yet. Like,
we'll
I think it's still too early.
Coming out March 30th, I believe, so it's not too far off. But yeah, that's Moon Knight. It looks great. Really excited for it. All right, and that's the end of our On Beat segment. Now we're going to move on to On the Horizon. On the Horizon. On the Horizon is a segment where we go over stuff that's coming up in the next week and a half or so. A lot of the stuff that's coming out, we already talked about on last week, so we're going to kind of skip over that stuff. So we're going to be starting on January 26th, on Wednesday, when Astrid and Lily Save the World comes out on Sci-Fi. This looks like I've seen it compared to like a more overtly comedic Buffy type of show.
Oh, really?
And that it's like about these teen girls that open a portal to hell and then have to close it or something.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of got that like Buffy the Vampire Slayers kind of style to it, but more like overtly comedic, apparently.
Okay.
Then after that, on Thursday, January 27th, The Fallout hits HBO Max. This is a movie. I just recently saw a trailer for this, so it's coming out pretty quickly. It's about the aftermath of a school shooting.
Oh, okay.
So I watched the trailer. The trailer was really good, but it's one of those things where you finish the trailer and you're like, oh, that trailer looks really powerful. Looks like a really good movie. I wish we didn't live in a world that this movie exists in. But that's The Fallout. It's not really about the shooting so much as about the after effects of, that it has on people's lives after it. Then on Friday, January 28th, The After Party comes to Apple TV Plus.
That looks fun. That's a comedy.
It's from Lord and Miller.
Yeah.
Who did, Into the
I guess like it's apparently a whodunit because like there's like somebody gets murdered at a high school reunion and like there's all these crazy characters, obviously.
Yeah, a big cast of like kind of interesting comedic actors and high school reunion setting. And it's Lord and Miller, like I said, who did Into the Spider-Verse and the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street and all that. So
yeah, that looks fun.
Yeah, that's coming to Apple TV Plus, January 28th. Next up is All of Us Are Dead. This is a new Korean show.
Oh,
and it's about a zombie outbreak at a high school.
Okay.
So yeah, Netflix is going to be, we cut it from our news segment, but Netflix is going to has something like 22 Korean shows this year.
Yeah,
after the success of Squid Game, they're doubling down.
Yeah, they're doubling down. Which, I don't blame them.
So yeah, this looks pretty good. Like, it looks like it's going to have a good balance of like comedy and horror. And then also on Friday, January 28th, The Legend of Vox Machina comes to Amazon Prime. This is an animated adaptation of Critical Role. Critical Role, if you don't know, is like it's a Dungeons and Dragons, like they stream their Dungeons and Dragons, basically. Like, it's a group of friends playing Dungeons and Dragons, they stream it, and then they've taken the story of this quest that was like their first quest they did and turned it into like, it's not like they did that animated like Harmon Quest thing that one time that was like,
yeah, I remember,
literally animating, but with the actual dialogue from the game and stuff. This is not that. This is like an adaptation of the game. So it's like recreating what happened in the game as a fantasy story. So, and it's an animated one. I saw a trailer for it without even knowing that that's what it was, and I thought it actually looks pretty good. It looked kind of like Disenchantment.
Yeah.
It looked kind of like that, except more legit fantasy, stuff, which I guess is because it's Dungeons and Dragons. Then also on the 28th, The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window is coming to Netflix. This is a spoof of all of those, like, woman is at home and she witnesses a murder in her neighbor's house through her window kind of movies.
This is like a spoof of stuff like Rear Window and stuff.
Yeah, but starring Kristen Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be pretty funny. I haven't seen anything from this. I haven't seen a trailer or anything. I just saw the description and the, and the title. So I'll have to see what this actually ends up looking like. But it's Netflix on Friday, January 28th. Also on Friday, January 28th, on the Nintendo Switch, Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that game. It looks interesting. It looks like it's taking Pokemon and kind of like applying some of the Monster Hunter formula to it. And the way I see it, it's like Monster Hunter is because basically you have a hub town that you go and you talk to NPCs and they give you missions to go on. And then you go on the missions. And missions usually involve catching Pokemon, but they can involve doing other stuff too. Like, it's not all catching Pokemon. But then, like, when you're actually in a Pokemon battle, it's not like static where like you're just giving commands to a Pokemon and fighting. You do fight with your Pokemon, but you are also moving at the same time, and you have to worry about yourself dodging Pokemon's attacks and stuff like in real time. It looks like everything happens in real time.
Oh, it's like an action RPG.
Yeah, it's like an action RPG. Yeah, exactly. So like more like Monster Hunter in that sense.
I'd imagine it might be kind of like Parasite Eve. Did you ever play that?
I play a little bit of that.
Where that game, you run around and then your turns come up and then you pick things from a menu. Like, you assign attacks and things like that. And then you have to like move around again,
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of imagining it too.
And also coming out on Friday, January 28th, the last thing we're talking about on the horizon is Morbius, and that's hitting movie theaters. This is the next movie in Sony's version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes, this is the Sony Spider-Man Cinematic Universe.
The Venomverse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not too terribly excited about that. I really wasn't into the Venom movies, so I might just wait for this one to hit, like...
Same. This is kind of like, I'll watch this on streaming. I don't really care.
Unless I just want to get out of the house and it happens to be playing when I do. I probably won't be checking this one out in theaters, but it is coming out in theaters on January 28th. And that is it for our On the Horizon segment. And now it's time for our final segment, our double-sized final segment.
Yes.
Full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we are going to be discussing the entirety of Cobra Kai Season 4, as well as the first 3 episodes of Peacemaker. Let's kick things off with Cobra Kai Season 4, the All Valley Tournament.
Yeah.
What did you think?
This was excellent. I loved it. This was a season where, we got Johnny and Daniel finally trying to, work together, even though they break up, halfway through the season again. But it's funny, too, because I don't blame Johnny, because, the whole season, I was getting mad at Daniel. Why the hell are you being so stubborn?
Yeah, he's being very inconsiderate too. He knows how much Miguel means to Johnny, and he's just immediately trying to fucking poach him.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And making Johnny jealous, and he knows he's making Johnny jealous.
Yeah, he already did that with his own freaking son.
Yeah, exactly.
Now he's doing it with his makeshift son too. It's kind of you can see it's easy to understand why Johnny Lawrence would be frustrated.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And yet he gets super defensive the second his daughter gets some training.
Right, yeah. As soon as his daughter wants to go train with Johnny, he's he gets all super defensive. And there's the scene during the tournament where she wins the fight and then Daniel says to her, yeah, but you didn't win the right way. And it's because she wasn't using his techniques. So Daniel has this chip on his shoulder. He's just his way is the only right way. Mm-hmm. And there's no other way.
Yeah.
And what I do is at the end of the season, he starts to realize that, that's not true. And he starts to ease up on it.
Yeah. He finally starts to settle down and they kind of come together I think in the last episode finally.
Yeah, in the last episode finally, yeah. Daniel realizes he was a dick. It's yeah.
So the big thing this season, the thing that the season was kind of promoted on was the return of Terry Silver.
Yes.
As kind of one of the new villains or one of the main villains in this season, teaming up with John Kreese from the worst of the main Karate Kid movies.
Yeah, but from the worst of the main Karate Kid movies, Terry Silver was also an amazing villain. He's the most memorable part of that movie. So
yeah, definitely. So he returns in a weird way because he's kind of reluctantly returns. He doesn't want to return. He recognizes all the bad things he did and wants to kind of move on from that. And then he comes back and ends up worse than fucking Kreese.
well, the thing about it is he managed to reform and rebuild his life. And then Kreese, because Kreese wants him back so bad, Kreese then starts working on undoing that and basically returning Terry Silver to being the monster that he was. Mm-hmm. And that's what Kreese tries and successfully does. And the beautiful thing about that is when you get to the end of the season, it's Kreese succeeds in doing that, but then that monster bites him in the ass.
Yeah, like a cobra.
Yeah, like a cobra. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of the main kind of storylines going on is that twist. And it's just interesting because you see there's moments where John Kreese is trying to be pure evil and trying to turn Terry Silver back to being evil and all this stuff. Then he'll have little moments when he's for instance, talking to Tori where he's basically okay, you don't want to do that. You don't have to do that. Whereas normally he's you must do this immediately.
Well, I think you see it's subtle, but I think you see as he's working with Terry Silver, where I think what's happening is John Kreese is like starting to see some of the stuff he's doing and starting to have like certain realizations. Well, they make it like very obvious. When Terry is telling Tori to cheat, John Kreese kind of has like, this coming to God moment where he's like, oh shit, no, what the hell have I been doing? Yeah.
I think he gets that, but I think he really only gets that right now in relation to Tori, who he's kind of taken like almost a surrogate father-like role to.
Right, yeah.
I don't think he really sees it with everything else he's doing.
Right. That makes sense. Because they also made it clear like John Kreese also sees himself as a father to Johnny, and I think he's taken on that same kind of like relationship with Tori.
Yeah, I mean, they make it sound like he's trying to do that with Robbie, but he seems less invested in that. Like he just wants Robbie as like a fighter for him.
It's not just that. It's also Robbie is also a way to get back at both Daniel and Johnny, because like John Kreese is attached to Johnny, but he still resents Johnny for like, leaving him.
Yeah. So it's interesting though that like the natural progression you would think would be that Robbie would become that new surrogate son, but instead he kind of has that surrogate daughter role with Tori instead.
Yeah. And Terry having transformed back into who he was, when he sees Kreese starting to become soft, that's when he gets rid of Kreese.
Yeah.
Right.
He recognizes there's a whole kind of line going through the series of, starting about halfway through the series, I think, where Terry says that everybody has a weakness, including Kreese.
Yes.
And Kreese is like, kind of like, what the fuck? What did you say? Like, I don't have any weakness. Like, you could see it on his face the second he says that. And that kind of becomes a moment of tension between them.
Yeah.
Through the rest of the season. And then at the end, basically, like, Terry says, he said, you do have a weakness. It's Johnny. Johnny is your weakness. And he's like, and I have a weakness too. And it's you. But I'm getting rid of my weakness. And that's when he turns on John Kreese.
Yeah. Well, he frames John Kreese. They brought Stingray back.
The best character in the show.
Yeah, the best character in the show. I was like, oh man.
Actor.
I was like, oh man, they brought Stingray back, and of course he's still like a total goofball, right?
Yeah.
And everything. And I just thought like this was gonna be like, because like initially the plot is the prom's happening, and so Stingray like invites like all the teenagers back to his home to
it's his sister's house, I think.
Yeah, his sister's house to have the party. And I thought like that was literally gonna be like the extent of like his storyline this season. But they actually did have a use for him, and that was because you get like an absolutely brutal scene where like he approaches Terry and he asks to join Cobra Kai, and Terry is in a moment where he is absolutely losing it because, he was going to, beat the shit out of Johnny Lawrence for Kreese, and Kreese was like, no, I don't want that. And so like Terry is now in a complete state of like mania. And so this guy who Terry, would never be Cobra Kai material to Terry at all.
And who John Kreese had already basically like talked down to like a puddle of slime.
Yeah, a puddle of slime, approaches him. And so he just goes off and he beats the shit out of Stingray. And then he frames it on Kreese. It's revealed in the last episode that at the end of the beatdown, he picks up Stingray, and he says, I'll let you into Cobra Kai if you do this one thing for me.
Mm-hmm. And then Stingray in tears says that it was John Kreese.
Yes.
That did it to him, and John Kreese is arrested. I'm trying to think of the other kind of main stories that were interesting to talk about.
Well, there was the main story. Well, there was like the big story, like Johnny Lawrence actually getting into a relationship with Miguel's mother and then actually trying to become an actual father to Miguel and not just like a father figure.
Yeah.
But like there was that storyline. There was like a lot of touching moments with that. There
was also the storyline between Amanda LaRusso
and
Tori, where Amanda basically like realized after kind of going after Tori because of what Tori had done to her daughter, realizes how fucked up the situation is for Tori and tries to be better. But her daughter ends up becoming kind of like an abusive bully to Tori, like Tori's job.
Samantha starts to become like a bully to Tori now. And so the roles are reversed. And I'm seeing them like setting up a total reversal for next season where we're going to see Tori like come around, because like the last match in the finals, when they do like the tournament, like the finals are, for one thing, I love that Hawk actually beat Robbie in the finals. I thought that was cool.
Apparently those two actors are like the better martial artist of all the actual actors.
Of all the
on
actors,
the show.
really?
They're the ones with actual martial arts experience. Them and William Zabka those are the three that kind of have like real martial arts knowledge or whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's kind of cool to end with the two real fighters.
With them two fighting, yeah. And that was one of the most impressive fights of the season too. Mm-hmm. So that was really cool. And then you got to like the girls championship, which ended up being Samantha and Tori, which obviously, and Tori like wins in quotation marks because like after Tori gets her trophy, she finds out Terry Silver bribed the ref.
Well, there was a moment in the fight where Tori accidentally hit Samantha with her elbow in what would have been like a point reduction for Tori. And Tori didn't mean it. She didn't do it on purpose. And she like tried to apologize. She was trying to do it clean because that was what she had a moment with
and
Amanda.
That was also the moment where Terry Silver was
mom, where
egging her on to do it again.
Yeah. And she didn't want to play dirty. And she ended up winning, but that one hit would have held her back from winning. And she wouldn't have gotten the win if the referee had played fair, but he didn't.
Yeah,
and she didn't realize that. So like it doesn't play because in the episode as if like, oh, obviously there was cheating going on here. Like you just go like, oh, the ref just missed that or maybe made a bad call. And then you get to the actual end of the episode and realize, no, there actually was a moment.
And there's like more context there too, because like in the prom episode, when Tori is talking to Robbie, she says like she legitimately wants to win because she wants to feel like she accomplished something, you know. She basically explained it's not about rivalry. It's not about, you know, Sam. It's like she wants to win that trophy because she wants to accomplish something. And that's why she wants to do it legitimately, you know. So like when she finds that out, you know, you gotta imagine like, she's feeling betrayed.
Yeah. So you have like her as a turnaround. You also have a bit of a turnaround with Robbie, who finally gets together with his dad again. And Robbie tells his father that he doesn't want to blame his father anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the key point. So that's like, that's a big turn of the tide too, because Robbie's been kind of a villain for like the last 2 seasons, you know?
Right. Yeah. And then there's going to be a Sam reversal because like after Sam loses the match to Tori, like there's already been like friction between Sam and her dad, you know, like, and it seemed to be resolved before that fight, but like after the fight, she seemed like even more upset. So it looks like, yeah, there's going to be like a reversal there.
Yeah. There's a good chance of that. Or for her to like slip back into like a PTSD state.
Right.
Because she kind of like when Tori kind of tried to approach her right as the match was ending to apologize for the hit or to like, you know, try to like win graciously. And Samantha was like pushing away from her, like, stay away from me. So it could be like a PTSD thing again, which she was kind of having an issue with last season.
Let's talk about Kenny, because this was another
this new character. He's introduced in the second episode. They introduced this character of Kenny. He's playing something in the equivalent of like a Minecraft type game on his computer. He's really into it. And he's in a rough position. His dad's, I think, in the military and he's away. His brother, they say like something happened to him. You later find out he's in prison. And he's a character we saw last season, actually.
Yeah, but, he's the character who was tormenting Robbie. Robbie
who ended up kind of becoming friends with him, right?
Yeah.
You know, soon after. But yeah, so this character, he's like this new kid in school and it's following him around and he's all excited and he's listening to his music as he's heading to the bus stop and he's dancing. And then he's still dancing as the bus arrives and everybody laughs at him. And immediately he's being bullied. And one of the bullies
I'll let you say it.
Is Anthony LaRusso, who, you know, finally they're actually doing something with that character. He was just kind of like a background decoration.
Yeah, he was like a non-character for like the first like 3 seasons.
And
like,
so now you have him, he's kind of playing the role of like, he's kind of like playing the Johnny Lawrence role from the original Karate Kid, with Kenny kind of playing the Daniel role as being like this new kid from out of town. And then the one kid that's being kind of like abusive towards him. They're playing it a little bit more interesting than that though, because they are definitely setting it up that Anthony's role in the bullying is coming from like peer pressure on him.
Yeah, peer pressure like from his initiating friends. Right. Yeah. It's mostly like his friends initiated it and then he's going along with what they're doing. More than anything. But like it still doesn't absolve him. No, and it's also interesting because like Kenny goes to like his brother in prison and his brother refers him to Robbie. And then Robbie, because Robbie's an idiot, like gets him into Cobra Kai. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is, and what ends up driving Robbie back to his father is by the end of the season, Cobra Kai has completely corrupted Kenny.
Yeah.
You know,
he's a little monster.
Yeah, he's a little monster.
And you know, it's like Anthony's not like, you know, like you said, he's not free of blame here or anything for everything that happened.
Absolutely not.
But you can tell through the season he's having issues with what he's doing. He doesn't like what he's doing. And he finally decides decides to turn the leaf on it, and he comes to Kenny and directly apologizes and says he's sorry for it and is trying to make it up to him. And that's when Kenny just kind of goes ape shit on him and beats him up. And, that's when Robbie realizes that Kenny's like now been completely corrupted.
Yeah, exactly.
And the last thing is maybe like, Miguel decides at the end, he feels like he's being used. We have the whole thing with him fearing, and it's also encouraged by like Robbie. Robbie says as an asshole thing to him at one point that his dad's only interested in Miguel because it's like, because he doesn't have, because he screwed up so bad with his own son. And so that's floating around in Miguel's head. And then, of course, Johnny's getting together with his mom. And then there's a moment when Johnny's like wasted and Miguel like helps him into bed and he says like, thanks, Robbie. And like it has all this stuff is having an effect on him. And then at the competition, there's like something that Johnny says he screws up and something he says that like that all triggers all of that. And at the end, Miguel has decided that he wants to find his biological father.
Right. Yeah. Miguel forfeits his match and he leaves for Mexico to find his biological father. And like we say at the end of the season, Johnny tells Miguel's mother that he's going to go find Miguel in Mexico and bring him back.
Yeah. So that's that.
Yeah. That's that. Oh, and there's one more thing. Because there's like right at the end of the episode, we see something else. We see Daniel at Mr. Miyagi's grave talking about like he has to honor the agreement that they made because Cobra Kai wins the tournament, the grand championship, right? Mm-hmm. And so like Daniel's like, oh, I have to agree my agreement, but he's also I'm not going to let them, just take over the valley. And then he says, I know it's not your fight, but will you help me? And then it pans over, we see Chosen, and he's like, yes. And it's like, oh man, yes.
Yeah.
Like,
so now we got
cheering.
Chosen in there. Now we just need to bring in Hilary Swank.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we need to bring in Hilary Swank and it'll be complete.
Chosen was in last season, but it was just a very small role. And here he looks like he's kind of getting more involved in the whole story. So that's cool. Yeah, that's it. It sets us up for what's going to come in season 5, which has already been confirmed. And the interesting thing is that now Kreese and Johnny are both disconnected from Cobra Kai. It's completely under Terry Silver's control. And Terry Silver is opening up all over the valley. And it sounds like all the big players of the kids from Cobra Kai are pretty much all gone, are going to be gone from Cobra Kai now. With Tori and Robbie seemingly leaving, as are, everybody else that already had left, like Hawk. So it's going to be like, I think they're going for that kind of like elite, like no-named, faceless kind of villain kind of thing for season 5, where like it's going to be all these people that like we're not really invested in. They're just kind of like being trained like fucking psychopaths.
Yeah, exactly.
And that everybody else is going to be on the other side fighting against that as Cobra Kai takes over the valley.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that approach works. Let's move on, though, to our last show for full spoilers, and that is Peacemaker. Peacemaker is the continuation / spinoff of the Suicide Squad, the James Gunn one from last year. The entire series was written by James Gunn, and he even directed 5 of the 8 episodes, including the 3 that we're going to be talking about tonight. Because this is James Gunn, there's going to be a heavy focus on music. And this time the focus is, whereas like Guardians, it was like 70s music, this time the focus is on hair metal. I saw an interview with him where he was talking about like how he likes to use music that's kind of either fallen out of favor or is just kind of lesser known. So it's going to be a lot of like deep cuts from the hair metal scene representing the soundtrack of this, including the opening song, which is Do You Want to Taste It by Wigwam.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy, crazy opening sequence.
It's a crazy, it's a fun opening sequence. This show is insane and I love it. I love it. I love John Cena's portrayal of Peacemaker. Like,
I just love like all his like machismo, like hiding up. Like, when he has that moment where he breaks down and just starts crying.
Yes.
Like, it's like hilarious. It's sad
hilarious
too, but it's hilarious. And then like after he gets caught crying, he's like, I'm not crying. I'm training my face muscles.
Yeah, exactly.
It's this very like childish kind of demeanor that he plays perfectly, being such a huge guy and just acting so in such a childish way is just a really interesting character.
Yeah, I love it. He's like a big, dumb, belligerent, like, jock. And I love, like, God, like, all the moments, like, one of the funniest parts is, like, when he's having to escape this building, and he's having to escape the police, and, like, he's trying to, like, jump from balcony to balcony, like, down this building, and he flubs, like, every single jump, and just, like,
they look so painful, everyone.
Yeah, every one of them looks so painful. people. I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
Well, it's also because he can't leave behind. He's like stealing shit from the apartment that he was in.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He's got like this freaking blanket, like with like all these records and shit they stole from this apartment. He's trying to keep.
Yeah. Plus this like weird like artifact thing that seems to be tying into some bigger plot line.
Yeah. Well, there's a big plot line. Well, let's just say like, so basically he's released from custody. He was in the hospital because of what happened in the Suicide Squad, which they show, like they say previously on the Suicide Squad, and they show what happened for those who didn't see that. Spoilers, Bloodsport shot him, and it was pretty bad, but apparently not fatal.
Yeah. It's just lucky it was such a small bullet.
Yeah, he was just lucky it was such a small bullet. Exactly. But he gets out. There's this great scene with the janitor and him, like at the very beginning.
Talking about how his kills are all like racist.
Yeah, talking about like he's like, oh, look, when somebody's committing a crime, I can't control what ethnicity they are. It's like, yeah, but you don't look that hard at the white people, do you? And he's like, okay, that's fair. I'll try to do that more.
I'll try to kill more white people.
Yeah, I'll try to kill more white people.
He's like, will that make you feel better? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff about racism in this, and like in a much more sinister way than we're used to in like a superhero kind of series.
His father is literally the White Dragon, who is a DC supervillain who is famous for being super racist.
Yeah, he refers to like a female detective as chopsticks.
Yeah,
and then she calls him Fork.
Yeah, yeah, she calls him Fork.
Which spurs a conversation between her and her partner over whether or not she should have called him Spoon instead of Fork, because Spoon is more demeaning. This is James Gunn all the way through.
but he's recruited by this team set up by Amanda Waller, of course, with a couple familiar faces in the team, but also some new faces. You can take it from here.
There's a leader of the team named Clemson Mern.
Yes.
We don't really know too much from him. The one thing we learn is that he apparently hasn't
killed a lot of people.
Revealed any of his
we know that
he hasn't shared any of his feelings ever in his life.
Yeah.
And he's starting to now, like he's trying to turn things around, I guess, or something, which is just kind of weird. There's Leota Adebayo, who is a new team member, and we find out at the end of the first episode is the daughter of Amanda Waller.
Yes.
There's Amelia Harcourt, who is
she was in the Suicide Squad.
Yeah. So. And Peacemaker is really trying to hook up with her.
Yeah.
He's like her love interest, apparently, through this season. But she's not interested in him.
He's not at all interested in him.
And then there's John Economics, who is also in the Suicide Squad, where he played 2 roles in the Suicide Squad.
Oh, did he?
He played the role of John Economics, the same character that's in this, but he was also the motion capture actor for King Shark.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's a neat little bit of trivia there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, like, their mission is Project Butterfly, and they're going after what they're calling butterflies. And Peacemaker doesn't really know what's going on, but like, I love that, like, he's like, okay, you guys aren't known for your creative code names. Like, Project Starfish was literally a giant starfish. So he's like, wait, does this mean I'm going to be fighting a Mothra? And they're like, it's not a Mothra. And he's like, are you sure? How do you even fight a Mothra? I'm going to need a jetpack. Do I get a jetpack?
This is really funny all the way through.
There's so many different jokes.
God, Eagly
is fantastic. Especially when like, yeah, Eagly is Peacemaker's eagle sidekick.
That's being handled by Weta Digital.
Yeah, and there's this great scene where like he's reunited with Eagly, and Eagly like hugs him.
He's with his dad too, and he's like, oh, you gotta get a picture, and his dad's already just walked away, just doesn't care.
Yeah, just doesn't care. Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to figure out where we need to go with this, because this obviously isn't the end of our discussion of Peacemaker. We're going to be talking week by week.
Yeah, we're going to be talking week by week. The broad strokes. So like over the 3 episodes, we gradually we find out what, by the end of the 3rd episode, you get a really good idea of what Project Butterfly actually is.
It's some kind of like an organism, probably like alien, that looks like a butterfly that's inside these people's heads.
Yeah, like it's literally like these butterfly looking alien insects that basically take over people and stuff. So like, I love that reveal at the end when it was like the butterfly like insect, because it circled back around to what Peacemaker said at the beginning of episode 1, where like, you guys don't have creative code names. And like, he was right about that. He just wasn't right about it being Mothra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about two characters, one that we only see briefly, and one is probably the best character in the show. The one character
Vigilante.
we only see briefly first is Judo Master.
Yeah, Judo Master is great. From the previews, we're going to see a lot more Judo Master.
He's also in the opening dance sequence thing and stuff, so it's got to be more than just
all
him.
the significant characters are in that sequence.
Yeah. So Judo Master is great. He's this tiny martial arts expert that's guarding the senator who in turn is actually one of the butterflies.
Yeah. At the end of episode 1, when Peacemaker follows Hardcore into a bar and tries to pick her up, tries to proposition her for sex, and she's obviously not into it, and she rebuffs him, and that's when he hooks up with this other random woman in the bar.
It's kind of like rocker looking chick.
Yeah, and she turns out to be a butterfly. And because Peacemaker doesn't know what the hell a butterfly is, because they wouldn't explain it to him, he doesn't know what's going on.
Well, what's hilarious is that, after they recovered him, and he had killed her, he got away from the police, they got out of there, and they're trying to figure out how she found out that he was on to her or something.
It's like, shit, the butterflies know we're onto that, but how? There's got to be a mole. It's like maybe Amanda Waller is playing us, and they're like, no. And Hardcore's like, well, I know it's not me. I know it's not Bourne. And she's like, I know it's not Peacemaker because he almost got himself killed and he's too stupid. And then it was Peacemaker. only the reason wasn't because he intentionally betrayed them, because they gave him the dossier and he took it into the apartment when he had the hookup.
Yeah, because he didn't want to leave it unsecured in his car.
Yeah.
There we find out that his dad made all these different versions of his helmet. And one of them, he said, with the sonic boom functionality, and he uses it, it just shatters the butterfly woman to fucking
it just
gravy.
Melts her in the goo.
And just creates a crater in the parking lot around him.
Yeah.
I was worried that they were going to kill Eagly, that we're going to find out Eagly was killed in that
and that's the event that gets the cops involved.
Yeah.
So really now they got a lot more attention on this than, they wanted in the first place.
I love how his father gets framed twice.
Yes.
In completely unrelated ways. So first, John Economics frames him to get them off of Peacemaker's trail, puts it all on his dad, and he just does it because it's a convenient way to do it. It's the most convenient thing to quickly work it to. And they're like, I can't believe you fucking did that. You want Peacemaker to work with us and you just framed his dad. He's and then later on you find out they had convinced, was it this one couple that he had gone through the apartment of to lie, and they both of them just point to his dad on the list of suspects. They weren't prompted to do that. They're just oh, this guy looks I don't give a shit about this guy, I'll just point to him. And so he gets double framed and ends up in jail, and that's how we find out that he's this guy named White Dragon. He wields an incredible amount of power among white nationals in jail.
Yeah, as you see that they're literally worshiping him. The next big character we haven't mentioned, but is just a treat, is Vigilante.
Yeah, Adrian Chase, Vigilante.
He's this guy who he's obsessed with Peacemaker. When Peacemaker gets out, the hospital, he goes home. He comes home to about a million freaking messages from Vigilante. One's hey, hey P, it's V. Let's hang out. It's and I didn't mean that penis and vagina.
Well, he called back to say that part.
Yeah, he called back to say that part. Yeah.
Before I called you P and me V. I didn't mean that as penis and vagina.
Yeah.
Vigilante, I think, is the best character in the series.
And he's a total sociopath, too.
He's he reminds me of, Kick-Ass, if Kick-Ass was a sociopath.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's just like that.
He's always he'll be spying on Peacemaker and Peacemaker's group, and I'll just be they'll cut to him and he's just behind a dumpster, peeking out. They're we see you. And he's no, you don't.
He gets involved literally because he inserts himself into this. He forces himself into it. Nobody wants him involved, but he makes himself involved because he can't stop following Peacemaker around. It's even though Peacemaker barely wants anything to do with him.
Yeah. It's funny.
And it's funny, the relation,
a big brother,
Yeah, it's clear he's trying to emulate Peacemaker, only he can't.
But he's a total sociopath too. Like you said, he's when Peacemaker couldn't shoot the children that were butterflies, he's he's all, here, just hand me the gun. And he starts shooting them all, and he's, like, whistling as he does.
Yeah, exactly. Because I like it, because, like, hardcore is, like, when Peacemaker, like, balks at, like, killing the children, even though, like, they're clearly butterflies. Like, at that point, like, there's no doubt. Hardcore is, like, great. Waller gave us a killer who won't kill. And then Vigilante's like, oh, can you just, like, give me the gun? And then he does it.
Yeah. While whistling, which is just great. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's seriously my favorite character in the show so far. Yeah. I can't wait to see more. As we're recording this, we're mere hours away from a new episode. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm excited to watch more of this. Like, this show has been fantastic. I'm looking forward to continuing it. This has been such a treat.
We got to wrap things up now, though. So yeah, usual spiel. Next week, we're going to be covering the next episode of Peacemaker. I think we also said we were going to cover Eternals. Would you be ready for that?
Yeah, I think I'll be right. I got a week to watch it, so that should be fine.
Yeah, so we'll cover Peacemaker and Eternals next week. Until then, though, you can leave us a comment. You can reach us on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Willie as @VoxelHero. As I said, leave us a comment, good, bad, or indifferent. We just want to hear our feedback. Just let us know how we're doing, or if there's something you want us to cover, or if there's something you wanted to ask us or have us read on the air. Just send us a comment any way you can. Twitter's probably the best bet. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Check out thetotalscreen.com and any of our social links that you can find there. Our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to this podcast on Pocket Cast or Apple Podcast or any podcast client that you use. So just look us up there. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen Podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.